other American detainees. Please do all you can to bring us home. We never forgot about Brittney. We've not forgotten about Paul Whelan, who's been unjustly detained in Russia for years. This was not a choice of which American to bring home. We brought home Trevor Reed when we had a chance earlier this year. Sadly, for totally illegitimate reasons, Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittney's. And while we have not yet succeeded in securing Paul's release, we are not giving up. We will never give up. We remain in close touch with Paul's family, the Whelan family, and my thoughts and prayers are with them today. They have to have such mixed emotions today. And we'll keep negotiating in good faith for Paul's release. I guarantee that. I say that to the family. I guarantee you. And I urge Russia to do the same to ensure that Paul's health and humane treatment maintained until we are able to bring him home. I don't want any American to sit wrongfully detained and one extra day if we can bring that person home. My administration has now brought home dozens of Americans who were wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad, many of whom had been held since before I took office. And today, we also remember the other Americans that are being held hostage and wrongfully detained in Russia or anywhere else in the world. Reuniting these Americans with their loved ones remains a priority for my administration, every person in my administration involved in this. We're going to continue to work to bring home every American who continues to endure such an injustice. We also want to prevent any more American families from suffering this pain and separation. And I strongly urge all Americans to take precautions, including reviewing the State Department's travel advisories before they travel overseas, which now includes warnings about the risk of being wrongfully detained by a foreign government. Make no mistake about it, this work is not easy. Negotiations are always difficult. There are never any guarantees, but it's my job as President of the United States to make the hard calls and protect American citizens everywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. And I'm proud that today we have made one more family whole again. So welcome home, Brittney. And now I'd like to invite Sherelle to say a few words to you all. Of course, she's not excited at all about this. Sherelle, it's all yours, kiddo. Congratulations again.
Thank you. So over the last 9 months, you all have been so privy to one of the darkest moments of my life. And so today I'm just standing here overwhelmed with emotions, but the most important emotion that I have right now is just sincere gratitude for President Biden and his entire administration. He just mentioned this work is not easy, and it has not been. There's been so many hands involved, and so I'd like to take a moment to just specifically mention a few. Vice President Harris, Secretary Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Josh Geltzer from the National Security Council, Roger Cartson and Fletcher Schoen from the Hostage Envoy's Office. A special thank you to Governor Richardson and Mickey, the Mercury Players, the WNB PA for your advocacy. And also, you guys may not know this, but my family has been tremendously supported by the Wasserman Agency. BG's agent, Lindsay Sacoolas, has just been amazing for me and my family throughout this process. So today my family is whole, but as you all are aware, there's so many other families who are not whole. And so BG's not here to say this, but I will gladly speak on her behalf and say that BG and I will remain committed to the work of getting every American home, including Paul, whose family is in our hearts today. As we celebrate BG being home, we do understand that there are still people out here who are enduring what I endured the last 9 months of missing tremendously their loved ones. So thank you everybody for your support. And today it's just a happy day for me and my family. So I'm gonna smile right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Mr. President, what has Russia gotten in return, Mr. President? What has Russia gotten in return for this prisoner swap?
When will Brittney be back in the U.S.?
What has Russia gotten in return, Mr. President?
President Biden speaking there, along with Brittney Griner's wife, Sherelle, reacting to that news that Brittney Griner has been released from U.S. custody. Let's bring in our Moscow correspondent, Diana Magne, now, who's standing by for us. And There was much discussion in that press conference, as well as all the happy remarks about Brittney Griner's release. Of course, reference as well to Paul Whelan, who hasn't been released from Russian custody. And a senior US official has told NBC News, our US partners, Diana, that they tried everything they could to get Paul Whelan out, but they're treating him very differently.
Yes, it was interesting to hear the US president say that the Russians consider Paul's case somehow different. He's in jail on espionage charges, and the sentence is an extremely long one. He's served almost 4 years now. This will be his 4th Christmas without his family. And clearly, from the American point of view, the Russians were the ones who refused to countenance handing over Paul too. But it was quite heartwarming to hear both the US president and, in fact, Sherelle, Brittney Griner's wife, saying, you know, we will not give up on trying to secure Paul Whelan's release. Joe Biden saying that a number of times. I guarantee you that we will continue doing everything in our power to get Paul Whelan out. And David, his brother, who's run this impressive campaign really ever since Paul was imprisoned nearly 4 years ago, has sent out an email saying, you know, we are so pleased that Brittney Griner has been released. This is wonderful for us, and we do not begrudge the moment at all. But of course, remember all the efforts that everyone is putting in, and please do not forget about Paul, which you can really understand. But it is an amazing moment, really, that Russia and America have managed to negotiate this exchange. We're hearing from Russia's human rights commissioner that the Abu Dhabi airport was chosen because it was an easy logistics exchange point. She said that all the praise for this operation should go to the Russian special secret services. Well, I'm sure American secret services and all of those who were thanked by Sherelle, Brittney Griner's wife, all played a role in this exchange. The second big prisoner exchange this year, really. But Brittney Griner was, you know, she's a huge star in America and to basketball fans all around the world. So it was a very high-profile case to see her imprisoned for a supposed 9.5-year sentence. And now, just a few months later, for the Americans to have orchestrated her release. But as Joe Biden said there, you know, this is wonderful and we're so glad she's coming home, but we will not forget about other Americans unreasonably detained around the world, and especially Paul Whelan here in Russia.
OK, Diana, for now, thank you. And we will bring you more on that breaking news throughout the day here on Sky News. Do stay across the channel for that. And now Prince Harry has described what he calls a feeding frenzy surrounding his relationship with Meghan, with the Duchess saying the press would always find a way to destroy her. In the first 3 episodes of their Netflix documentary, Meghan says she received death threats after their relationship became public knowledge. The couple also recount how members of the royal family said Meghan should not receive protection or special treatment. Well, joining me now is broadcaster Afua Hagan. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I think it's very interesting, isn't it, Meghan Markle's comment that she believed no matter what she did, the media was still going to find a way to destroy her. What's your reaction to that? Because indeed the media, when they first got together, seemed very, very excited about their relationship.
Yes, and those comments made right at the beginning of episode 1, actually. But then it became clear through, you know, all the stories that, you know, came from sources that were just making things up, to the headlines with racial undertones like Harry's girl is straight out of Compton, that certain British tabloids were not being fair towards Meghan. And yes, there was this kind of discourse, and Harry was told by the palace that, you know, other wives and girlfriends have had to go through the same thing. It's particularly bad with women. But of course, there was a racial element to this as well. And Harry said he was quite naive. And I think Meghan was as well. You know, she didn't realise how much the British press would take umbrage by her being a biracial woman, and how much that would have an effect on the reporting about her.
And do you think that racism was at the heart of the main problems that Harry and Meghan had with the institution and with the media?
I think definitely racism and classism plays a huge part in the way that she was portrayed and in the issues that they certainly had with the British press. I think there was also cultural differences, the fact that she was American, the fact that she was an actress, the fact that she was a divorcee, but the fact that she was Black, the fact that she was biracial plays a huge part in that, and plays a huge part in lots of the ways in which she was reported about, in the stories that were written about her, in the way that she was pitted against other female members of the royal family. Definitely race plays a huge part in that.
Where do you think this is all going to end? Do you think this is just going to make the rift with the royal family even worse? Or do you think it is somehow still reconcilable?
That's a really good question, isn't it? I think after these 3 episodes, which actually were really mostly about their love story, how they got together, how their relationship played out, after these 3 episodes, I think definitely reconciliation could be on the cards if that's what either side wants. But we haven't seen 4, 5, and 6, the next 3 episodes, which are going to be out this time next week. We don't know what will be in there. Perhaps it depends on that maybe we might get bombshells, we might get things that we haven't heard before. In these 3 episodes, we weren't really being told anything new, and they definitely were not highly critical of the royal family. So perhaps if episodes 4, 5, and 6 are differently, if that plays out differently, then perhaps it may be a different story. So I think it remains to be seen. Ask me this time next week.
OK, Afua Hagan, we will have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Now, coming up at around 2 o'clock this afternoon, the former US spy who killed a British teenager, Harry Dunn, when driving on the wrong side of the road in Northamptonshire 3 years ago, is to be sentenced at the Old Bailey. Now, we'll be bringing you full coverage of that sentencing this afternoon here on Sky News. And joining me is the legal commentator, Joshua Rosenberg, who will be with us throughout this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What do you make of this sentencing? Of course, Sacoolas hasn't been in the country, let alone the courtroom, during this whole legal process. So what really can we expect to come from today's sentencing?
It will be very much like an ordinary case, except, as you say, the defendant is not in court. She'll be on a video link. She's never been in court in the United Kingdom. I can't think of a case like that, although judges have told me that there have been cases where the defendant has not attended. So she will be on a video link, presumably from her lawyer's office in Washington, D.C. She will see the judge will see her, and we will see the judge when the judge passes sentence after hearing from the prosecution and defense lawyers. We won't see Sacoolas. All we'll see is the judge, but we will see the judge speaking direct to Sacoolas, just as Sacoolas will be watching on a screen, and we will hear the sentence that the judge, Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb, passes for the offence that Sacoolas admitted, which is causing the death of 19-year-old Harry Dunn by careless driving.
There is a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison for death by dangerous driving. If a custodial sentence were to be issued by the judge today, what chances are there that Sacoolas would ever serve even 1 day in prison, given that the US government refused her travel to the UK for this process?
There's no way in which the sentence, whatever it is today, can be enforced unless Sacoolas is willing to come to the United Kingdom, and the US government has made it very clear that they won't allow her to do that. If, however, she is given a community sentence, which does seem the most likely, because although 5 years is the maximum for causing death by careless driving, it is possible to have a non-custodial sentence if there are no aggravating circumstances making the offence more serious. If this community penalty is imposed, then it's something that we know, because Sacoolas' lawyer told me last year, we know this is something that she would like to carry out if she possibly can in the United States. Now, this wouldn't be fulfilling the court's order, but it would be doing the next best thing, whatever it may be, unpaid work or work in the community, something to make amends.
And the fact that Sacoolas left the UK without Harry Dunn's family knowing, claiming diplomatic immunity, What do you make of that and how that all played out?
She was fully entitled to. The US Embassy checked with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and they accepted that because of a loophole, because something was overlooked, she was fully entitled to diplomatic immunity, even though her husband would not have been if it had been his car that had been involved in this tragic accident. So she was not only entitled to leave the country, in the circumstances where she wasn't going to be prosecuted, she would have been expected to leave the country, this being the next best thing to putting her on trial. She waited until she was told this, and the Foreign Office allowed her to go before telling Harry Dunn's family, something for which the then Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab apologised and explained. She was certainly allowed to go, and she went lawfully.
Joshua Rosenberg, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We'll speak to you later on. You're watching Sky News at 1. Coming up in a few moments at 2 o'clock, the Dunn family have arrived at the Old Bailey, and we will be bringing you the sentencing of Anne Sacoolas, which is happening from 2 o'clock this afternoon, just a few minutes' time. Stay across Sky News for the coverage.